Games used to be really weird. Not to say they aren't anymore, look at Deltarune or Pizza Tower, but it feels like interesting and out there ideas are either toned down or completely disregarded for their sheer oddity, which I think is a shame, especially when older games really leaned into that, specifically early 2000s RPGMaker games. You've got stuff like Off, Yume Nikke, Lisa Painful, Space Funeral, etc. That era of gaming, and the one before it, are fascinating to me just because of the sheer strangeness that these games could embody, as they had no strict boundaries on anything. Of course, indie devs still love complete conceptual creative freedom, but YouTube, especially game development YouTube, has convinced everyone that they have to make whatever's the current popular genre, leading to things like the survivor-like, mascot horror, and deck builder genres becoming extremely oversaturated. As much as I love many of the Steam-era indie games, I find the constraints of always trying to make something in a popular genre to be incredibly suffocating, leading to a lot of projects that are a lot more dull and uniform than I'd really like to see. We are getting lots of design innovation. Vampire Survivors and Lethal Company literally pioneered new roguelike genres, but it feels like strange worlds with interesting thematics have gradually gone more and more on the back burner to instead focus on gameplay. Does that mean I dislike a gameplay focus? No, far from it. I find game design to be fascinating. I just also happen to find weird and unique worlds and overall ideas to be fascinating as well. Maybe even more so. There's a game that perfectly encapsulates this feeling, and if you know anything about this topic, you likely expected this. Yume Nikke is one of those games you tend to hear a lot about, but never quite delve into. I finally decided to play it for the sake of this video, and let me just tell you, as somebody who has somehow managed to never watch a single video essay on the game, despite watching so many about its contemporaries, it was a fascinating experience. If you aren't familiar with it, Yume Nikke is a game about dreams. In this game, you explore different worlds via a set of doors to gain effects, which allow you to customize your character. Fundamentally, this game has no true goal, at least to my knowledge. It's more like a living, interactive art piece than truly a game, as it uses the medium to showcase incredibly strange and interesting landscapes, creatures, and worlds. These worlds in and of themselves are the goal, as experiencing them is something you really can't get from any other game, which is what sets Yume Nikke apart from so many other games. Usually you can find similar games, but aside from direct fan projects, Yume Nikke is really just incredibly unique in both its approach to game design and storytelling. Now, do I think Yume Nikke is a particularly well-designed game from a pure game design perspective? No. It's really and truly just a walking simulator, but for some reason, I can't help but feel like it's all the better for that. It isn't the type of experience that should have a tight gameplay loop or be entirely coherent. The focus is on dreams after all, and dreams themselves are incredibly strange and sometimes even incomprehensible. As much as I do love gameplay and game design, I can't help but love the fact that this game just exists as itself, as proof that you can just make the art you want and people will enjoy it despite its strangeness. One of my favorite aspects of this game, at least from what I've played, is how most things just aren't interactable, and if they are, they don't affect much. One of my favorite moments that shows this lack of control is when you get to a door blocked by strange mushrooms, and instead of doing some puzzle or task, you just wait for them to move. It really makes you feel like the world itself is alive without your personal intervention, and helps set the tone of the game for me, as this was one of the first areas I went into. Another aspect I absolutely adore is just the soundtrack. Most of the tracks are just ominous droning and noises more than anything else, which always keeps me on edge with a sense of dread. To my knowledge, Yume Nikke actually has no jump scares, but honestly, I can't lie, just walking forward in an ominous void until you randomly run into a strange and unsettling creature made me jump more than once, which is quite surprising because I came into this game thinking the horror wouldn't really get me, as I very rarely actually get scared playing horror games. Yume Nikke just has such unfamiliar environments and ideas that even the simplest of things work. And that's absolutely the beauty of it. With all the mascot horror and just general slop, honestly, people are making that just isn't scary, something that is so intrinsically different to everything else, just counterintuitively, is amazing. One of my favorite experiences playing the game as of yet is when I randomly decided to get into the bed in the dream world, and, for a split second, saw an incredibly ominous stairwell filled with hands. I, of course, walked right by accident and instantly exited that area. But I think that genuinely improved my experience because once I got up, I tried to go to that place again, but the bed just didn't work, making the unsettling vibe even more prevalent. I eventually returned to that area and explored it, but I won't spoil that here, as I implore you to go play the game yourself, as it's very hard to put into words the feeling this game gives. It's definitely not for everyone. I know I didn't come into it thinking I'd get all that much out of it, but I think at least trying it for a little while is important, as a game like this sometimes takes a bit to click. Yume Nikke is free on Steam, so there's no real reason not to check it out, especially when it's just such an interesting game, so focused on not giving you any answers in the best way possible. As you could probably tell from that section, weird games are just one of my favorite things. Yume Nikke isn't even a game I find all that fun, at least not in the traditional sense, but the excitement of finding a new area and seeing this really cool art is just palpable, and that feeling is very sparsely replicated by other games I've played. Now, visual weirdness in games like Yume Nikke is great, but they're incredibly light on storytelling and intentionally vague, leading to a general lack of characterization when it comes to, well, characters. This isn't inherently bad. Yume Nikke was made to give a very specific kind of experience, but I can't help but be more drawn to games like Undertale, Earthbound, and Off is a game about cleansing the world. In this game, you play as the batter, or more accurately, you play as yourself guiding the batter. Immediately, Off sets its tone very clearly, as music begins to play and you're told where you are. This is Zone 0, an empty land. Well, except for one person, if you can even call him that, the judge. The judge's first introduction is very indicative of his character, as he believes you to be a figment of his imagination. You're immediately keyed into his eccentricity as he speaks incredibly eloquently, despite being a cat. That, and instead of greeting the batter, he directly refers to the player instead, implying a knowledge beyond the confines of his world, just adding onto the subtle oddities of his character. From here, you're given a fight tutorial, and after that, a series of puzzles. Upon completion of those puzzles, you enter an area with a floating red cube. According to the batter, this cube assaults your gaze and defies any sensible course of plastic arts. What are plastic arts? He does not explain. What he does explain is that this cube allows you to travel to the nothingness, a void wherein you can travel at the speed of light to reach any of the other zones. He then sends you off and implies you'll meet again. If you couldn't already tell from that simple description of what is functionally the tutorial area, this game is very strange, in a good way. I really like Off's world building and characters, and really nothing explains why better than that introduction. They're strange, speak unconventionally, and a lot of times seem to know more than they let on. More than anything though, they truly act like they live in the world and don't just spell out everything. Like how the judge mentions plastic arts far before anything of the like is explained, making for a subtle but interesting mystery to hook the player into the world even just a tiny bit. Off's story isn't the only thing that's really cool, the art direction is as well. The in-battle sprites and character designs are just so unique to the game that I can't help but absolutely adore them. I could genuinely make an hour-long video about how I love this game, but I mostly cut this section short because, first of all, I want you guys to play this game. It's literally free, and it's a great experience aside from some tedious puzzles, but second of all, like I said, I could spend an hour talking about this game, which means it would balloon the size of this already insanely long video. Like, this is gonna be my longest video. Aside from that, I've also got to talk about another game and, well, a conclusion, so this section will need to be cut short. While a major chunk of this video is talking about strange and usually old RPGMaker games, I actually wanted to spotlight a much newer, very interesting weird game that still keeps alive the vibe of this era of gaming. This is a game that truly encapsulates what this video's about. I got you. You really thought I was gonna have a whole section on a non-RPGMaker game? Juice Galaxy is a really weird game. All the stuff I've talked about as of yet pales in comparison to the weirdness, which is a crazy thing to say with what I've already talked about, but it's true. Nothing encapsulates this more than the opening sequence, which I'll just let play out here and you'll understand what I mean.
Wow. Just wow. You are really weird and gross. And floppy too. Anyways. Welcome to Juice School. I am Mrs. Slithers. Today we are going to talk about juice. But first, a pop quiz. Starting now. First question. What is juice? Juice is everything. It is all around us. Why are you here? Wrong answer. Prepare to die.
As you can see, this game definitely falls under the criteria for this video, being probably the weirdest game I've ever played. The strangeness of this game is quite different from the others I've described though. Yume Nikke has an ominous, almost horrifying weirdness to the world, and Off's weirdness is fascinatingly profound, in a similar vein to Toby Foxery toy games, along with, similar to them, still that horror. It's just not quite as dreadful. It still is ominous for sure though. Juice Galaxy, on the other hand, is just ridiculously weird. I mean, it's called Juice Galaxy, of course it's gonna be weird. Surprisingly, aside from the weirdness, this game, unlike pretty much any of the others I covered, has a really nice gameplay loop as well. Oddly enough, if the Steam tags are correct, it considers itself a Souls-like, and as such, your goal is to obtain as much juice as possible via killing enemies. Speaking of killing enemies, I have yet to talk about the combat system, which is quite important. Instead of an average Souls-like game's combat system, Juice Galaxy opts for something far more unique. An entirely physics-based system where you move the camera to have your arm swing in that direction. The game also relies on an energy system, which allows you to hold out your weapon in front of you, adding a bit more engaging resource management. Along with this combat system, there's an upgrade system via these juice fountains, which function to use that juice that I talked about collecting before, and are also save points as you progress through the map. The final really important mechanic for progression is the fact that you can just fly. It uses energy, of course, but you can fly, like, what? Everything is very physics focused too, so it's always funny seeing you fly around. Flight as a mechanic is very important though, because the map is randomly generated, so you've got to be able to get around pretty fast. Now that I've gotten those mechanics out of the way, I want to talk about the sheer insanity that this game truly embodies. There's no better way to show off the insanity of this game than to talk about the toilet realm. Yes, that's right, you heard me. The toilet realm. Duh. There is no D, I just accidentally wrote a D. We can ignore that. Before I talk about that though, I should probably give a slight background. When first starting Juice Galaxy, you can get quests from a couple of different characters, namely Mr. Fox. He gives you a quest to go to a mysterious house inhabited by a wizard. Though, when you go there, there's no wizard, only a basement that's actually just a giant tunnel. But, if you decide not to go down there, which leads to the usual first boss of the game, you can instead walk up to a literal toilet in the house, and you know what option it gives you? Flush yourself. Hence the toilet realm. Similar to the overworld, this area is randomly generated, though it's mostly vertical instead of horizontal, and once you reach a certain depth you'll find the boss arena. In this arena, you can fight Sergeant Sucker Punch, a boss who is just a man with plungers as limbs. Upon completion of his fight, he gives you the plunger so you can fight the Clog, who genuinely just can only be killed by the plunger. You just spam it in his face while he talks to you. It's kind of hilarious. Upon defeating him, well, I'll just let you witness this sheer peak.
Hey, you're too close. Oh no, I've been unclogged. Master, I failed.
You fool!
You have no idea what you've just unleashed. Finally, after
All this time. Swirly D has risen once more.
Really like Nikki.
As you can see, this game, it's a bona fide masterpiece, rivaling the likes of Half-Life 2 and Zelda Ocarina of Time in its sheer peakosity. In all seriousness, I quite like this game and the oddities it presents, and really hope to see more goofy games in this vein, along with the weirder games I'd mentioned before. There are definitely some similar ones, such as Cruelty Squad, but well-known games that are weird for the sake of weirdness aren't particularly that common, and if they are, they're usually just like the meme game that people talk about for a day. Which, I mean, Juice Galaxy kinda was, but it also has 10,000 reviews on Steam, probably because it used to be free. It is $5 now, but I mean, it's a worth it $5. I got like maybe 4 hours out of it, and I didn't complete all the content. I know I missed one of the bosses, and they just kind of give you a cheat code or tell you how to do cheat codes at the end, so I just kind of played around with that, so I messed around a bit, so I didn't actually entirely complete the game, but it's like 5 hours of content to 100%. It's not a big game, but it is enjoyable. Honestly, the original plan was to have an entire section on Hylics, hence the thumbnail, but that game is really hard to just talk about on its own, and I think giving a general thesis on both why I think weird games are rare and why they're so fascinating to me would make more sense, as I can still talk a bit about Hylics here. I think the major reason weird games are so rare is just that. They're weird games. Everything cannot inherently be weird, because then weird games, well, they wouldn't be weird games, they would just be games. Even something like Juice Galaxy is a bit of an outlier on what I consider a weird game because of its ties more so to meme culture than straight up unconventional methods of storytelling and world building. Though I mean, my definition of weird is kind of vague, I guess, and I use it and strange interchangeably. That doesn't mean Juice Galaxy isn't weird, by the way. I just mean when I talk about weird games, I'm usually referring to the quirky unconventionality that resides in a lot of JRPG and JRPG adjacent games. I enjoy all types of weirdness though, and want stuff to be unique, as if every game was a quirky Earthbound inspired RPG, then it wouldn't feel quite special. Games like Deltarune have a lot more to them than just being inspired by Earthbound, and is why it's so beloved. That brings me to another point about why weird games are so rare. Quite frankly, they're just really hard to effectively make. Games like Heartbound and Knuckle Sandwich unfortunately reside in a realm where they take too much of one aspect of the weirdness, which makes a lot of the dialogue and humor feel very clunky. For Knuckle Sandwich, it's just a lot of random humor, and Heartbound, well, it's made by pirate software. I mean, that says enough, right? Leaning into one thing in a game isn't inherently bad. Off has a very consistent, whimsical tone, but even it effectively uses humor in certain sections to punctuate the darkness, similar to Earthbound or Deltarune. And Juice Galaxy is just pure unseriousness to an extent that makes it highly enjoyable, as weird fiction that's made just to be weird is equally as valid as stories intending to be both weird and profound. Making a weird game also relies on one thing: the ability to actually create what it is you want. Hylics wouldn't be anywhere near as beloved if it just went for a simple style, but taking that strange claymation path made it incredibly unique looking, and of course the sound design and dialogue pushed this result as well. There are probably thousands of weird games I haven't touched on, as many are weird in one way or another. They just aren't always interesting enough to talk about, or fall into the pitfalls of genre restriction and conformity. As you can probably see, I'm very passionate about this era of strange RPGMaker games, and even some more recent Weird Steam games, though the latter a bit less only just because it doesn't feel like there's quite as much I'm interested in there, especially when, compared to these older games, a lot of the recent ones are inherently just trying to make a profit. Don't get me wrong, games trying to make a profit is not a bad thing. The weird RPG I'm actively working on is going to be paid. It just seems like that incentive usually inherently causes some people to roll back into conformity a bit more, because that's just easier to market, which, I mean, I don't blame them for it. It is easier to market. It is a totally fair thing to do. It just personally disappoints me because I love weird fiction. I mean, my favorite book as a kid was The Phantom Tollbooth, and if you know anything about that, it's like baby off. That's the only way I can describe it. It's baby's first off. If you enjoyed my deep dive into this topic, feel free to comment below any other topic or games in this topic you'd like to see me talk about, as there is a lot more I could talk about. Some I even purposefully left out so they could have their own videos, such as Deltarune. Of course, there's some of the games I mentioned offhandedly, like Space Funeral and the Lisa series, but quite frankly, I just haven't played those games yet. I'd really enjoy hearing about some of your favorite weird games and possibly play them myself. So definitely do what I said before, and also feel free to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this style of content, as this is far and away the most effort I've spent on one video, as I'm very passionate about this topic. Wow, this video is over 20 minutes long, and I have yet to even insert like the clips that will make it longer, so this could be fun to edit. Well, that's about all I've had to say. I really hope you enjoyed my deep dive into weird games.